Welcome to the Chapel Thrill Podcast with Hunter Caparelli and JJ Jones.
What's going on, Tar Heel Nation? Welcome to the 13th edition of the Chapel Thrill Pod, your home for all things Carolina basketball. Hunter Caparelli, sideline reporter, studio host, analyst for ACC Network Extra. Joining me, as always, my co-host, former UNC football wide receiver JJ Jones. JJ, since we aired our last episode, it was literally an hour after we had gone off live that the UNC basketball program had decided to part ways with head coach Hubert Davis after failing to make it out of the NCAA tourney first round. As everyone knows, Davis had played for the Tar Heels. He was then a longtime assistant under head coach Roy Williams, helping UNC win the national title in 2017. And then following Roy's retirement, Hubert had become Carolina's head coach in 2021. There was a lot of up and downs through 5 years, but a theme I think I developed over the past 2 or 3 years of blowing large leads, which was definitely encapsulated by Hubert's final game as head coach against VCU in this year's tournament. The Heels had led the Rams by 19, but collapsed, ended up losing in overtime. It was the largest comeback in an NCAA tourney game since 2018. And Hubert had appeared agitated in the post-game news conference, declining to get into specifics about the collapse. And then after 2 weeks of deliberating on whether or not Hubert would be retained or let go, athletic director Bubba Cunningham and soon-to-be athletic director Steve Newmark decided that they would part ways, and they now have landed on their new man, their new head coach. So we'll break down of what we think Carolina's new head coach, how he'll be. We'll provide a transfer portal update on which players have decided to leave, which players have decided to stay, and we'll give our opinions on who we think the Heels should target in the portal with college basketball officially in the offseason. So JJ, let's get into it. I was teasing it a bit, but North Carolina's search for its next head coach, it's landed in an unexpected place, I think, for a lot of fans. But the Tar Heels intend to hire longtime NBA head coach Michael Malone as the school's next coach. JJ, when the news first broke, what were your initial thoughts?
I would say I was absolutely ecstatic. I think this is an amazing hire. Out of the pool of coaches, we thought we were going to get a guy from the college ranks who had maybe some UNC ties or some tournament ties in March Madness. But, we get outside the landscape and we go get a guy who's an NBA champion, Mike Malone. And I think it's a great hire. Like I said before, I think all UNC fans are really excited for this hire. I'm really eager to see how he'll handle this team, how he'll handle the college experience. It's a totally different ball game than the professional level. Even though college basketball is getting to that level. But it's definitely a transition. But I think for everybody, we're all very eager to see what he'll do. And again, I think everyone's ecstatic as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Malone, an NBA champion with his time with the Nuggets in 2023. He won over 500 games in 12 seasons as a head coach, and I think he's one of the most respected tacticians in the NBA with stats, and has spent the past 10 plus months as an ESPN analyst after being fired by the Nuggets. A couple of quotes I saw from Malone between his press conference and a few news releases. He had said Carolina is one of the most historic programs in college basketball, and he's honored to be the head coach of the Tar Heels. He says it's humbling to follow so many legends in Chapel Hill, and he knows that for many Tar Heels in the NBA, how special the Carolina basketball family truly is. And he said he's going to do everything he can to continue UNC's championship legacy while preparing players for professional careers in life after basketball. JJ, he also mentioned that the UNC job was the only college job he'd even consider between every single possible college basketball program across the landscape. JJ, when you hear those words, what inspiration, what motivation does that bring you as a fan, as an analyst of the team?
I think that's really awesome. The fact that only one college team he wanted to go to was UNC. And I think that shows everybody that UNC is the standard. It's a very historic program. It's a blue blood. And I feel like any coach would want to coach here. And for Mike Malone to have that kind of resume and be like, UNC is the place for me, I think all UNC fans should be very grateful to Bubba Cunningham and the new AD as well for allowing this to happen. And there's a lot of exciting things coming to Chapel Hill right now. You have another professional head coach in Bill Belichick, and now another professional head coach in Mike Malone, where UNC is now trying to reach that upper echelon of college sports, which is going to be amazing for this campus, amazing for this community, and amazing for this fan base as well.
I 100% agree. The contract details came out today. So Malone, he'll average yearly about $8 million across a 6-year contract. So that's going to put him among the top 5 highest paid coaches in college basketball. This isn't the first time Malone is coaching in college. He was an assistant coach at Manhattan in 2001. He was also an assistant at Providence from 95 to 98 and at Oakland from 94 to 95. But I think over the 25 years of coaching in the NBA, his reputation is definitely one of the highest in NBA circles, having the respect of UNC legends like Michael Jordan, like Roy Williams, who I think played a role in this hire from behind the scenes. And with college basketball, I think becoming more like the professional basketball NBA every year, I think UNC gets a respected X's and O's coach who has worked in the NBA for nearly a quarter century. JJ, what are your thoughts on how you think the transition will be between going from the NBA to college, with the idea that because of how NIL has shaped college basketball over the past few years, the transition might not be as difficult as some fans might think? What are your thoughts?
I think it's kind of the same. I know it's kind of recruiting in terms of college basketball, but in a sense, you're kind of recruiting professional players as well to get to your team. You're hosting them for visits, you're hosting them for workouts. And I believe that Mike Malone has great relationships with his players, which is the amazing thing as a college coach, because these are young kids who are going off away from their homes for the first time. So they need a father-like figure. And like you said before, he has the respect of guys like Michael Jordan, Roy Williams.
Yep.
And if you look at his former team in the Nuggets, all the players have the utmost respect for Coach Malone. So I think this transition will, like you said, be a lot easier than a lot of people do think. And I think he'll come out here. I know he's super excited. I think I was super fired up in his press conference when he said he's not here to become second place. He's not here to win the ACC tournament. He's here to bring national championships to Chapel Hill. And once I heard that, I was all aboard the Mike Malone train, which every UNC fan should be as well.
I completely agree. If we backtrack a little bit, UNC had been linked to a couple high-profile college coaches as the tourney wrapped up. That included Michigan's Dusty May, Arizona's Tommy Lloyd, Bama's Nate Oates, and Iowa State's TJ Otzelberger. All 4 of them publicly committed to staying at their schools. And then with the transfer portal opening this morning, I don't think it was viable for Carolina to wait any longer. Obviously, there were a lot of rumors about Billy Donovan, the current Chicago Bulls head coach, potentially being a top candidate for the job, but it sounded like Donovan wasn't going to leave for UNC until at least the end of the NBA season, which would have put the Heels at least a week behind everyone else in the transfer portal. I know Iowa's Ben McCullum and Baylor's Scott Drew were also a few names on the list that had come up in the past 48 to 72 hours, but I think the Heels definitely pulled a stunner and opted for Mike Malone. According to John Rothstein, he said a major factor in this was the fact that UNC did not have to pay a buyout to get Malone. With all of those college coaches I had mentioned, they were going to have to pay a large buyout to get them bought out of their contract at their current school and then bring them over to UNC. The fact that Carolina had already had to buy out Hubert Davis, I don't think it was very viable for them to be paying 2 separate buyouts. Another close source who worked with Mike Malone in Denver, he's quoted as saying Mike's work ethic is extremely maniacal. He's a tough New Yorker who's going to go out, he's going to fight, and he's not going to take bleeping from anyone. So you hear quotes like this, you hear what he had to say at the press conference. I don't know how you can't be fired up if you're a fan of this program. Obviously, there were a lot of great college coaches who some fans may have wanted, but with a lot of those coaches kind of trying to build their own things at their respective programs, I don't think there was a better option than to go with a coach who has won at the NBA level, who knows the professional level, who's been around college basketball. He's been able to talk to a lot of scouts, a lot of GMs in college basketball, and I don't think there was a better option for the Heels at this moment. JJ, what are you most looking forward to? You talked about it briefly, but what are you most looking forward to with Mike Malone being the coach for the Heels for the next what's supposed to be next 6 years?
I am really looking forward to the players he brings in and the caliber of players he brings in.
Bingo. Bingo.
It seems like, recently we've had guys who've came in, then wanted to leave, who wanted to play for Coach Hubert Davis. And again, it seems like the past, I think it was until from 1952, from there on, we've had a UNC coach who has UNC ties. So kind of bringing an outsider into the immediate UNC family. I would love to see how these players process that in the recruiting process, in the transfer portal process. And again, he's won at the highest level. He's won an NBA championship, which should be a great, great pitch to recruits saying, look, if you want to go to the league, which is everybody's dream at this level, I know how you can get there. I know how to win. Again, this is a great hire with a guy who has one of the greatest resumes. Not a lot of people have a lot of NBA championships. It's very rare.
Yeah.
So having a guy like that who can lead a team and to lead this fan base who's so eager and so proud to become another blue blood like they have been before in the past, I think it's just amazing. I'm so excited to see it.
Yeah, definitely not many current coaches who have won an NBA championship. Michael Malone is one of the few of them. You mentioned the transfer portal. That's a great transition into it. I think on paper, UNC has a roster with a core that could be a top 15 team. I know ESPN's way too early rankings had UNC slated as 15. That's obviously couldn't be more earlier. The season just ended yesterday. ESPN currently has UNC as a top 15 team. If Malone can keep that core group together, then with the portal opening today, I think Malone's first priority is going to be to meet with those core current players and see who he can retain. I think his first focus will be Henri Veesaar, who's going to will potentially be a top fraternity and potential All-American if he's back in Chapel Hill next season. Outside of Veesaar, I think the next two key potential returnees are Jarin Stevenson, and then we learned an hour ago that he will be returning Luka Bogavac. So I think the Luka return is huge. I think he was really able to step into his role in the back half of this season. And Jarin Stevenson, I think he enjoyed an expanded role as the season progressed when there were injuries to both Caleb Wilson and Henri Veesaar. Like I mentioned, I think Luka, I think he brings experience. I think he brings shooting that Malone and the rest of the team can use next year. As far as players who have decided to enter the transfer portal from Carolina, that list is far more intense. We could go through it currently. Derek Dixon, Jonathan Powell, Isaiah Dennis, Jaden Young, Zayden High, James Brown, and Kine Evans have all elected to enter the transfer portal. Dixon seems to be the biggest loss so far out of all those departures, especially after being the starting point guard for the final 16 games. He was averaging just under 7 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds per game. JJ, what are your thoughts currently with the portal opening today of the players who have decided to go into the portal, and then with Luka already announcing he's going to be staying?
I know we talked about it briefly before on our podcast. I think we had an understanding we were going to lose some guys. We knew we were going to lose some guys to the transfer portal. I had a feeling a guy like Jonathan Powell or Zayden High, those kind of rotational reserve role kind of guys would go somewhere else trying to earn more playing time, which is completely understandable. But like you said, the big blow to Derek Dixon. I was really excited to see him. I was thinking he was going to be our next 4-year guard that we have at UNC, who we groomed to be that next all ACC type caliber player, which was a really, really big loss. But again, with the Luka coming back, I think that is great. You have a guy who's coming off of a pretty good back end of the season. I know earlier in the year he was kind of shaky, getting used to the American game of basketball. But then, like you say, he played a lot better towards the back half of the season, and having him come back and be one of the core players is going to be really tremendous. And I think he can be a good recruiter in the transfer portal as well. And hopefully we bring a guy in, like we keep Veesaar, we keep Jarin Stevenson, keep those core guys. But, just because these guys get in the portal doesn't mean that they leave, because you had a guy like Seth Trimble who got in the portal last year. After a few days, decided to come back, called Chapel Hill his home. And I would believe that Mike Malone met with these guys, these transfer guys
I think
before.
so. I would
Yeah,
think so.
you
Yeah.
would think so. But you never know. I think when you bring in a coach like that, there's always going to be second thoughts and second opinions, and they might want to come back. But of course,
Yeah.
college sports is insane now to where the transfer portal has
It's
thousands
nuts.
and thousands of players. So
Yeah.
if we lose a guy, unfortunately, in the current era we're in, it's okay.
Yeah.
We can go
You
find somebody
replenish.
else. We
Right.
can go find somebody else. You look at a team like
Yeah.
Michigan, their whole starting
Yeah.
five who just won the national championship, all were transfer players.
Yeah. Yeah.
So transfer portal, and now, like you said earlier, with the buyout, they don't have to buy out Hubert Davis. They get to retain somebody to give out to some of these other transfer portal players as well. So I think it'll be a very, very um, pivotal pivotal recruitment process through the transfer portal, and also keeping the recruits that we have as well, which should be a really big thing. And I hope that they've met with Mike Malone and understood his process and his playing time regimens.
100%. I will shout out Elliot Cadeau, 2-year player for Carolina, won a national championship last night with Michigan. Even though he had his ups and downs with UNC, he definitely showed in that championship game last night what player he's capable of being. You mentioned the fact that we expect Malone probably spoke with a lot of these players in the portal beforehand. I know Dixon was one of the earlier ones who had decided to enter the portal. So tough to tell if Malone might have talked to him or not, whether his decision impacted Dixon entering the portal. I know I did see online on Instagram Caleb Wilson commenting on a post that Dixon, if he returned and got out of the portal, he could be the next Jamal Murray, with Henri Veesaar being that Jamal Murray kind of Jokic duo. So that caught some traction. I think that would be super interesting if Dixon did return and we got that full season duo between him and Veesaar. And then, like you mentioned it, the recruits prior to Hubert's firing, he had secured a top 10 recruiting class, which was led by the number 8 prospect guard Dylan Mingo. He's one of the best two-way guards in the 2026 class. And he didn't commit until mid-February. He had picked UNC over Baylor, Penn State, and Washington. So I think if he was to reopen his recruitment, it would be pretty risky just based off those programs that he chose UNC over. I think Carolina is definitely at a higher echelon compared to some of those schools, compared to Maximo Adams, the 21st ranked prospect who picked Carolina over Kentucky, Michigan State, and Texas. So I think Adams, if he did decommit, would probably have a few more viable options to go to from those pool of teams. But obviously, as Carolina fans, I think you really hope that Malone could keep these two potential freshmen for next year, who, if you're looking trajectory-wise, Mingo, you're looking at a guy who could potentially be the starting point guard for next year, and Adams, potentially the starting small forward. JJ, what do you think Malone has to do to retain this core group of players and then branch out and build around it?
I think his biggest pitch would have to be him being himself
Mm,
and telling these guys that he can get them to the next level.
totally.
It seems like recently the UNC to the pro kind of train has slowed down in the past few years.
Yeah,
And UNC is a blue blood. They are a blue blood
100%.
team who should be producing NBA players every single year. And I think that the fact that Mike Malone has spent 20 plus years in the NBA, he knows GMs, he knows how the game's played, he knows coaches, he knows scouts. This should be like the greatest recruiting tool to have. If you want to play the next level, I've been there. There's no other coach. There's very few coaches in college basketball right now that have a NBA championship.
Yep.
I He is the pinnacle. Like he
Yeah.
literally is the
Yeah.
pinnacle of coaching at this point, which should be the greatest recruiting pitch. And again, he just needs to be himself. I know
Yeah.
it's going to be a slight transition because recruiting in college and recruiting at the professional level are two totally different things because
Yeah.
it is a very intimate and personal relationship in college. You're meeting the family, you're meeting their spouses, this, that, and third, so it's a lot different, but I think he'll be able to adjust to it really early, and he'll have a lot of people helping him out. I know there'll be a lot of UNC basketball alumni who will be there for him and help him out throughout the process as well.
Yeah, hopefully there was obviously a known entity that his daughter is currently on the UNC volleyball team. So there were a lot of people saying, oh, he's from outside the family. But if you include that, you could say he at least has a connection to the program. But I completely agree that I think Malone has to get the best players in America to commit to UNC again, whether that's in the portal, in the high school ranks. I don't think that was happening often enough for Hubert Davis, which I think led to a turbulent run after reaching the national title game in 2022. And I think even when he had the talent, like players like Caleb Wilson, they just didn't win enough. And there were obviously some unlucky spells, some injuries. Obviously, Wilson is the known obvious one, but the team just didn't win enough. They had lost in the first round the past 2 years. I think Malone just has to get the program back on track, which I have 100% confidence he can do that. As we start to look into the portal, it's been open now for almost 12 hours, but there was a lot of news of players who were going to be entering it before it officially opened. So there are a couple players on my list I think the program should watch and potentially try to target. A few of those names are Terrence Hill Jr. from VCU.
That was the number one player
Yep.
on my list. We need a guard like that. But
Yeah.
continue, my bad.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, UNC fans, you might forget, but Terrence Hill, who was the A10 sixth man of the year, he was the one who scored 34 points for VCU against the Heels in their overtime win in the NCAA first round. So I think that's a top target. JJ, I didn't want to cut you off, but I know you said that's definitely one of your top targets as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think that this team right now is with the depart of Derek Dixon and the unknown, the uncertainty of the guard play. I know we'll have some guys stepping into that role, but we need bona fide playmakers immediately out the transfer portal, especially at the guard position. And as you can tell throughout the tournament, guards win you championships, guards win you games. You can have a great big man, but if you can't have a guard who can go score points and be a playmaker throughout the game, throughout the season, then you can't win ball games. So UNC really just needs to go get some dogs out the portal. I think that's what we really need is some guys who want to play here and want to win at the highest level.
100% agree. A few other players I have on my potential target list. Jeremiah Wilkinson from Georgia. He had a really good season in the SEC this year. Juke Harris from Wake Forest. He was second team All ACC with the Demon Deacons this year, averaging just under 22 points per game. I think he would be a great guard addition. And then I also look at someone like a Caden Lewis from Villanova. He was a freshman this year on Nova who averaged just under 13 points, 5 assists per game. He'd actually picked Villanova over UNC during his high school recruitment. He had the Heels in his top 5 potential schools he was going to commit to. So as someone who's now in the portal, I think it's another potential top target for Mike Malone. So those are the few players I'm looking at. There was also rumors that Arkansas assistant Chuck Martin is a potential candidate to join Mike Malone's staff at Carolina. And it's important to note that Chuck Martin recruited both 5 stars DJ Wagner and Carter Knox to Arkansas, who are now both in the portal. So those are 2 other names to watch out for if Malone ends up hiring Chuck Martin. JJ, are there any other players that have entered the portal that you think the Heels should potentially look out for and try to get? Or players who maybe haven't even entered the portal that you have watched the past season that you could say, hey, if they're not going to be in the draft, why not Heels go get them?
Like I said, I just want dogs out the portal at this point. I don't care what their name is. I don't care what they've done. I want the best players out the portal. And I think UNC is going to be one of the more aggressive schools in the portal just because of what they're losing and the buyout, not with the buyout, but the amount of NIL money that they can ensue these players. Who wouldn't want to play here? I mean, you got it on your wall. I got it on my wall. This UNC blue, it's something different. And the guys that we get should be players who want to get to the next level. But I will say also, it is definitely a different ball game now, just this whole era. A lot of these guys are going to be they want to be one and done guys, which I completely understand. But that's fine. If you want to come here for a year and ball out, go win a national championship and get the hell out of here, that is perfectly fine with UNC fans, as long as we win. Like that is my biggest thing. So if a guy wants to be here for 1 year, ball out that one year and then go to the league and
Yeah.
do what you got to do. But just win us some ball games, please.
100% agree. There was actually a picture going viral earlier today. It was right before the 6 p.m. introductory conference from Mike Malone. It was Malone in his new office on his phone. It looked like he was potentially already trying to recruit some players from the portal first day on the job. So that caught some traction. Last two players I would say that Carolina should potentially look to get. I like Nicholas Dallas from Virginia Tech. He's an international. He was really good this year in the ACC. And then Stefan Vox from Providence, another international player. I think the college basketball landscape and atmosphere is going very much because it's going very much more pro. I think these internationals coming over from Europe have really grown and developed and gotten really good in playing in college basketball. You look at a team like Illinois, who was in the Final Four this year. Half their team seemed to be Europeans. I had mentioned on the or one of our previous shows, you needed like a European minor to pronounce some of those last names. But
Absolutely.
but I
Absolutely.
think you look at the success that some programs have had with these international players. I think it's definitely something that Mike Malone should target. Going on the coaching side again, another potential candidate I think that would be great for Carolina is former Vanderbilt coach, former UNC Tar Heel legend, and current Warriors assistant Jerry Stackhouse. I know his name was in rumblings as potentially being a possible head coaching candidate. But with Mike Malone now at the helm, I think Stackhouse would be a great hire to be an assistant for Malone. And then the one previous assistant that seems to be very much on the table for being retained by Mike Malone is former UNC Tar Heel Sean May. I think that would be a great retain for Malone. There was a picture going around social media of Malone getting off his private jet and Sean May awaiting him on the runway to greet him. So there's some rumblings that he'll stay with the program and stay on Malone's coaching staff. I think that would be great as well. JJ, as we wrap things up here, the portal will stay open for the next 2 weeks with a lot of changes going on with players going in, going out. We're still waiting to hear on the status of guys like Henri Veesaar and Jarin Stevenson and the recruits we mentioned before. What are your kind of final thoughts as we wrap things up here on the show with the portal open for the next 2 weeks?
I just think that I can't get over this hire. I think that there's a lot of UNC alumni who are really bought into this.
Mm,
I know they just dropped pictures of Mike Malone's press conference. Roy Williams is there. You have head
yep,
football coach Bill Belichick.
yep.
Henry Veesaar is there. You've got guys that are in the portal and Derek
Tyler
Dixon.
Hansborough,
Tyler Hansborough is
who
there.
some
Sean
people are
May.
saying that should maybe join the staff as well.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah,
I know he's an outside hire, but you have to keep at least somebody
yeah,
who's been with the program just
for
to
sure.
have that ties and just to give that recruiting pitch.
100%.
Again, like I said, you have Derek Dixon, Jonathan Power at the press conference.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean that they'll stay, but it's the fact that they get to see what their potential, if they come back, their new potential head coach, how he presents himself to the public, which I think is a
right.
very good look. And with the backing of having a guy like Roy Williams, who I know was so highly on Hubert
Yeah,
Davis, the fact that he loves this hire and he wants the best for Mike Malone,
mhm,
I think that should be a great boost and just adrenaline for fans. The fact that one
100%.
of the greatest coaches of all time is putting his trust into a guy. His guy didn't quite work out, but
Yeah,
he's like, okay, we have to move on. You've got the keys. You drive the
yeah,
car. You drive us to a national championship. I think everybody should be excited about that. And
yeah.
damn, I'm ready for basketball season.
So ready. It's a while away. We got some months. We have the spring, summer, and then the season will kick back off in October, so we have some time to wait, but very excited. You mentioned Roy's stamp of approval. I also saw Armando Bacot's stamp of approval. He mentioned on social media that he loves Mike Malone and he thinks it's a great hire as well. So a lot of former Tar Heels stamping their approval of Mike Malone as the next new head coach of North Carolina men's basketball. That's going to do it for the 13th episode of the Chapel Thrill Pod. We'll be back to provide our thoughts, opinions on Carolina's finalized roster once the transfer portal closes for the spring in 2 weeks on April 21st. We'll also start to analyze what the team's biggest strengths and weaknesses may be for next year. We also have a few potential guests in the works for our next few episodes, so stay on the lookout for that as well. For JJ Jones, I'm Hunter Caparelli. As always, go Heels.
Go Heels, baby. Mike Malone there. Let's get it started.
Let's do it.